Hello everyone. I know everyone is trickling in right now. Welcome to ISC's The Tale of a Success, featuring Keyvan Mohajer, who is the CEO and co-founder of SoundHound. We'll let everyone settle in for the next 3 minutes or so, but as the time goes by, if you'd like to relish in our beautiful music, please do so. And yeah, take a moment to congregate yourself as well as get settled. And we've reached the 3-minute mark, so we can begin. Okay, so before we start, I wanted to talk a little bit about what Iranian Students of California is to begin with. So we as an organization collectively have a mission statement of advancing the academic and professional aspirations of students of Iranian heritage in California. As most of you might know, we are a registered 501c, so that means we are a nonprofit, and we are a nonprofit through the Iranian in general, as well as IASC, noticed that there was a void with Iranian students. We understood that other ethnic minorities had their own group where they could congregate together under nonprofit status, but there was nothing like that for Iranian students. Therefore, collectively, we as ISC came together to create this nonprofit status in order to give back to the community. So what do we even provide? Well, for students, we provide student networks, student recognition, as well as leadership opportunities, connections to alumni, and student advocacy. And you can find more about that on our website listed there as well. In terms of what we offer, we have started up a computing as well as pre-health mentorship program. Now, these fields are specific right now, but they will be expanded to other fields later on. If you would like to know more about our other programs as well as our current programs, please check out our social media handles that are listed on the screen. Now, why are we here today? So we are here for a very important event and a special individual. Of course, in the past, we've featured other important speakers such as Ali Ghotsi last month. Today, of course, we have Keyvan Jan here with us today. And next month, we have Narges Bani Asadi. So our wonderful speaker, Keyvan, as you might know, is the CEO and co-founder of SoundHound. Keyvan himself has created an audio and speak recognition company that develops voice recognition, natural language understanding, and technologies that help with search history. Keyvan himself earned his bachelor's degree from the University of Toronto and his master's and PhD in electrical engineering from Stanford University. Without further ado, I will hand it off to one of my board members, Amir Gholami, who is one of the leads in computing. Amir?
Thank you so much, Farzaneh. Hi, everyone. Welcome. Keyvan Mohajer is here with us. We are very, very proud to have Keyvan in the second episode of The Tale of a Series. Hi, Keyvan.
Hi, Amir. Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for taking the time. To get things started, Keyvan, can you tell us a little bit about a SoundHound company and what it does?
Absolutely. So we started SoundHound with my co-founders in a dorm room at Stanford. And our vision was to make computers better than humans in understanding natural language with voice AI. So we are a sound and voice AI company. We built all the technologies in-house over the next decade. We noticed that computers are better than humans at computing, but they are not always better than humans at performing certain tasks. For example, we used to beat computers in chess, but now computers beat us. And But when it comes to language understanding, we still don't think computers are as good as humans. We talk with complex conversations with other humans, but when we talk to computers or personal assistants, we lower our expectations and we are nervous and we talk in short, simple keyword-based questions. And we wanted to change that. We wanted to make computers better than humans. And we thought if we can do it, the world will be a better place and people will be more productive. And it's a vision that will obviously continue for a long time, but we have delivered that vision, kind of a superhuman capabilities in many of the domains that we've delivered to our customers.
Great. And Keyvan, your company has been doing a lot of great innovations, starting from the SoundHound app. This is like 15 years ago, an amazing product. Can you tell us about SoundHound app and then how you developed Houndify technology on top of that, which was revealed recently?
Absolutely. So we wanted to build, the vision of the company was always voice recognition and natural language understanding, which combined together is called voice AI. And we wanted to build the core technology in-house instead of licensing it from others or using open source, because we thought that there is room for innovation and we wanted to own it so that we can innovate and have complete freedom of what we can do with it. That turned out to be a 10-year journey, and I think it's 10 years whether you start today or 10 years ago. And it's not practical for a company to be a startup and spend 10 years in R&D. So we launched several products along the way, and one of them that became very successful was our music identification app that's also called SoundHound Music, that understands, that detects recorded music that's playing in the background. You can also sing or hum into it. And that app was downloaded a few 100 million times. It brought revenues to the company. It brought fame and recognition. It allowed us to attract more funding and attract more talent. And it paved the way for us to spend 10 years building the Houndify platform.
Great. And Keyvan, before, I want to definitely go back to when you were students and discuss when you started. This is quite an amazing journey. Can you show us like a quick demo of the Hound app? I've seen one demo that was like really amazing what it can do, way beyond what Siri or other AI assistants can do. Would that
sure, yeah, absolutely. Anytime I do live demos, my colleagues say I should stop doing it because one of these days something will go wrong. But so this is the Hound app that's powered by our Houndify platform. So I'll do some examples. I'll ask it some questions and it will answer, and you can hear the response. And just to make sure I don't repeat any thing I've demoed in the past, let's start with a simple one. So again, we want this to be better than humans. So like we wanted to ask something that a human is kind of superhuman capability. So let's start with this one. How many days are there between the day after tomorrow and 3 days before the second Thursday of November of 2022?
There are 359 days between the day after tomorrow and 3 days before the second Thursday of November 2022.
So very complex query just to show that it can understand very complex relationships between entities and so on. Let's ask a compound question about how many, let's see. What time is it in Tehran and Tokyo and Dubai when it is 2 p.m. in Berlin?
It is 4:30 p.m. in Tehran and 10 p.m. in Tokyo and 5 p.m. in Dubai when it is 2 p.m. in Berlin.
What is the population of Tehran and Shiraz and Mashhad, and how is the weather in San Francisco?
The population is 8,846,782 for Tehran, 1,565,572 for Shiraz, and 3,001,184 for Mashhad. The weather is 65 degrees and sunny in San Francisco.
So this was a compound query with, I asked across multiple domains. I asked the population of several cities. I also asked for weather in San Francisco, 2 different domains, 2 different APIs, but it was able to understand everything in a single query. Now let's make it a little more practical. Let's say you're looking for a restaurant and you like Middle Eastern food, but maybe you have Persian food every day at home, so you don't want Persian food. And then you have some criteria, so you can ask it a complex question like this. Show me Middle Eastern restaurants in San Francisco except Persian food, and only show the ones that have more than 3 stars and are open after 9 p.m. on Wednesdays and have outdoor seating.
showing 8 Middle Eastern restaurants with more than 3 stars in San Francisco that are open after 9 p.m. on Wednesdays that have outdoor seating excluding Persian restaurants.
Tell me about the second one.
The second one is It's Moroccan Cuisine, the Moroccan restaurant, which is also a Middle Eastern restaurant located at 1303 Polk Street in San Francisco. It's about 44 miles from you. It has 4 stars on Yelp based on 531 reviews. On Thursdays, it's generally open from 12 p.m. to 10 p.m. These hours may be different on holidays.
Okay, so that was and I can keep going. I can follow up and refine my criteria and navigate there and find the distance from there to the airport. And so it does so many things. And again, our vision is to make this better than humans. It will make the world a better place. It will make people more productive. We have achieved that in a lot of the domains that we created, but I always note that the vision is a long-term vision. Assistants don't do everything. And it's something that we'll keep pursuing for years to come.
This is really, really impressive, Keyvan. And your company has done innovations so many times now. This is part of, I was looking at the statistics, part of 12 car manufacturers, more than 1,000 different products that have the voice AI technology. And it's really, order of magnitude above even the technology offered by hyperscalers, which is quite amazing. So I would love to learn more about how you've done this, but I thought we'd start taking a trip down the memory lane back when you were in Iran. If you've had interesting experiences there before moving to Canada, can you share with us some of the experiences you had when you were in Iran?
Yeah, so I was born in Tehran and I lived there for the first 17 years of my life. And then in 1995, my family immigrated to Canada. The way that worked was my dad, when he was 17, he went to the United States for university and then he went back to Iran after he got his degree. And then when me and my brothers were getting older, I have 2 brothers, my parents decided that they would do the same thing, but instead of sending us, we could all immigrate, and Canada had an immigration program. So we applied and got accepted. So in 1995, we moved there. I haven't been back, but obviously I have a big fan of the culture and I follow it, but I've never been back. And when I grew up, obviously life had its difficult days, but we managed to have a great life. And the biggest thing that I remember is that my parents were really into Persian art and Persian poetry and Persian traditional music, and that made a big influence in our upbringing. I'm very familiar with like Hafez and Sadi and others, and my dad used to read them and analyze them for me and my brothers, and that was a big part of our education. And then we had our family had friends who were poets and musicians and artists, and we had gatherings that had that kind of influence, like reading poetry and so on. And I remember I really enjoyed those days, and I still think about it, and it is definitely a big part of who I am.
Amazing, great. And then Keyvan, so it's 1995, you moved to Canada, and then next year you get admitted to the #1 school in Canada, University of Toronto, and you have a very impressive accomplishments there. You started 3 companies while you were doing your bachelor's in University of Toronto. Can you tell us about the experience that you had growing up in Iran, then going straight to U of T, and perhaps there was a cultural difference, some challenges, and then you not only overcome those, you did 3 companies. Can you share with us some of the experiences you had when you immigrated?
It was very hard. I can start with that. My English wasn't very good. I remember when I arrived in the Toronto airport, and I guess the immigration officer asked me a question. I think he asked, "How old are you?" I didn't understand what he meant, and then he said, "Better English next time." So as I was leaving, and I understood that, and I kind of that was kind of really bothered me. It was my first day, and then we didn't really know anyone. We didn't have friends. There were not too many immigrants then at that time in Toronto from Iran, and so it was lonely. And obviously, we were financially in a different status. So it was hard, and also I knew that my family sacrificed a lot to bring us there. So I felt responsible to not let them down. So I worked very hard. I finished 1 year of high school, in Canada, and I got really good grades, and I was studying all the time, and got really good grades, and I thought I would get into any program or any university I wanted because of the grades that I got in the last year of high school in Canada. So I found out about this program in the University of Toronto called Engineering Science that was supposed to be the most difficult and the most prestigious engineering program in the, I guess, the best university in the country, and everyone from all over the country would apply, and all the top people from all over the country would go there. So I applied to that program, and here's an interesting story. So in the Iranian culture, when you talk about yourself, it's not very good and polite to promote yourself. It's not good to say I'm very good. You kind of are supposed to be humble, and I guess being humble is good everywhere, but you actually have to say you're not good, and then you have to prove that you're good. But in North American culture, you have to always say I am the best. And if you look at politicians, the way they talk about themselves, and say I'm the best, I'm better than everyone, and that concept was just so unfamiliar to me. And when I saw it, I thought it was very rude, but obviously I adapted. So in my university application to University of Toronto, I had to write about myself. I actually wrote, I'm not very good, which was a very stupid thing to do. And then I didn't get accepted, even though I had very good grades. I guess that letter was not very good. So I got a rejection letter, and I didn't expect it because I thought, well, how can I not get accepted if I have the best grades in my high school? So it was kind of very disappointing, and I didn't know what to do. And then my older brother come here, he's 1 year older than me. He kind of taught me the concept of not taking no as an answer, and that's very hard to accept for a university application when they actually send you a rejection letter. So he said, let's go there. So we went there and said, why didn't you accept my brother? And they said, well, applications were due 6 months ago, and school's starting in like a week. And I said, but look at his grades, and how can you not accept this person? And they looked at my grades, and they went back in the room, and they came back and said, okay, we accept you. But then they accepted me not in engineering science program, they accepted me in civil engineering, which wasn't my top choice. But it was a way for me to get in, and I even thought, well, should I go there? Should I go back to high school for another year and apply again, or should I go? And then I decided, okay, let's just get in and take it from there. And so I studied 1 semester in civil engineering. I got really good grades. And then I went to the engineering science program and said, I want to transfer from civil engineering to engineering science. And they told me no one has ever done that. Usually people go to engineering science, they realize how difficult it is, and then they transfer out because they don't want to do all the hard work. No one has transferred in. And I said, I want to do it. And then I showed them my grades in the first semester, and I said, well, it seems like you might do well. So we accept you, but we warn you that it's a very difficult program. So I basically, after 1 semester, I transferred into the engineering science, which was the program I wanted. Everyone called me the Civ guys because I came from the civil engineering. And then in the second semester, I got at that time they ranked you. So I actually got the highest grade in the whole class. And then I finished the 4 years with the highest grade as well. So I worked hard. It wasn't easy, but I got where I wanted to be. And while I was doing studying hard and trying to do well in school, I also wanted to be an entrepreneur, and I really like to build things. So I started 3 companies. The first one when I was 19, and then when I was 20 and 21, I started 3 companies. So by the time I graduated from undergrad, I had started 3 companies.
This is really impressive. This is, really, really impressive. Amazing. So then, Keyvan, you have done 3 companies. This is, I think, 1999. This is a great time for being in the tech. Especially you had the experience. You were from the top school. Why did you decide to move to the US and continue grad school at Stanford? What was the decision-making process of doing a PhD instead of going to industry directly?
Yeah, so the way I learned about Stanford was when we moved to Canada and I became I got introduced to the concept of internet, which was amazing. You just type in the box and you search the whole web and you get an answer. And it was fascinating for me. And one of the first search queries that I did on the internet was good universities. And the first result was Stanford. And then I didn't know what it was. So I went and asked my father, is Stanford a good university? And he said, it's an excellent university. And I said, okay, I'm going to Stanford for grad school. So that kind of stayed with me. And then over time, I also realized that Stanford is a good school, but it also nurtures entrepreneurship. A lot of companies like Yahoo and Hewlett Packard and others came out of Stanford. So it really matched what I wanted to do. But the real logical reason is after I started 3 companies and it was kind of fast paced, I thought what I really want to do is I wanted to be a technical founder to a very high-tech company that would make a big impact in the world. And I would want to spend a big part of my life in it. So instead of being a serial entrepreneur and start 1 company per year, I wanted to make a company that would take decades. And I would want to be in it. And I wanted to be a technical founder. So with that thinking, I thought I should go to grad school. If you want to be a technical founder, get my PhD or at least master's in something, and then turn that into, come up with an idea that can be a long-term vision company. So that was the thinking behind going to Stanford, which I did in the year 2000.
Great. And Keyvan, so how did you choose your PhD research topic? This is a question we got from our audience. And, what was the thinking? There were obviously several different routes that you could have gone. I think the same thing applies today. So what was the thinking of choosing your research topic for your PhD?
Yeah, but so when I started, I got into the PhD program in electrical engineering, but my thesis wasn't, I hadn't decided what it was going to be. You have to have some idea whether you, like in engineering, you want to be in kind of semiconductor or the physics part of it or the software part of it, or I was more in signal processing and machine learning and so on. And so I was already in that, but to specialize it, the way I chose it, and again, this aligned with my mission to create a high-tech company, be a technical founder to a high-tech company, which is not everyone's mission. So people should, align their decision with, their life's passion and ambitions. But for me, that was that. And so the way I answered the question was, what would happen for sure in my lifetime that doesn't exist? So that was the question that I came up with. And to answer the question, I turned to sci-fi. So Star Wars and Star Trek. And if you look at sci-fi, like by definition, sci-fi is kind of futuristic and things that, the authors of the science fiction, they predict will happen and reasonably will happen in the future. And if you look at, for example, Star Trek, there are several concepts that are normal in their world, but they don't exist in our world. But we take it for granted. For example, going faster than speed of light is one concept. Teleportation, you disappear here and you show up in a different country all at the same time. That's teleportation is another concept. Star Trek had holodecks, so you enter a room and kind of simulate a new environment, not just visually, but also you feel it. And replicators, they can create food or anything you want. You just tell it to create it and we'll create it for you. So all those things would be disruptive and would change the world, and we don't have them, but they are normal in Star Trek and other sci-fi shows and movies. But the one that I thought would happen for sure, and in my lifetime, was voice AI. So I saw that people were talking to robots and computers, and it wasn't just dictation. So it was voice AI. So you talk to things and they talk back to you, you have a conversation with them, they understand you, they get things done for you, they look up things for you, and that seemed like a very great thing to have, and it didn't exist. Back in the year 2000, voice AI didn't exist. There was the concept of speech recognition, of speech to text, or automatic speech recognition, or ASR, as people call it. and that was used for dictation. It wasn't very good, but it existed. But combining that for natural language understanding and having conversation, the ambition was there, but it really hadn't been realized. And I thought that's something would happen for sure. It would happen in my lifetime. I actually thought it would happen in 20 years. That was the year 2000. So I guess we are there now. And I thought I want to be a part of that. I want to do it, at least be part of it. So with that, I chose my thesis to be in the area of speech recognition and sound signal processing and machine learning, and learn everything there is to learn in the next 4 years.
This is quite amazing. So it's the year 2004, December 2004. You and two other co-founders decide to start SoundHound as a company. How can you tell us a little bit about that time? I heard from Persian that that you had a special Christmas that year to develop the SoundHound technology. Can you describe what was the thinking, what was the excitement? Can you share some of the stories from that time?
Yeah, so we had so I wanted to build a voice AI company, and as I was doing my PhD from the year 2000 to 2004, I started going to the VC community, investor community, and I told them in 20 years, we will talk to computers and they will talk back to us, and that will change computing, and please give me some funding so I can raise some funding so that I can build that company. And the feedback from the VC community was, well, first of all, 20 years is way too long for our business. So most traditional VCs want to, have return on their investment in a few years, not 20 years. So that's just the concept of 20 years was scary for them. And also they said, we don't want to invest in you to do R&D. We want to invest in you to build a business. So you need to come back with something that will, first of all, you build some technology already, and something that will can be productized in the next 3 to 5 years. And that feedback was actually reasonable. It was kind of eye-opening, and it was reasonable. So I went back to the dorm room. I was thinking about what to do. And I remembered when I was a TA, I had a student, his name is James Hum, and he's one of our co-founders. He was telling me about this idea of query by humming. So you can hum a song and search engine will tell you what it is. And those days, with Google being such a hot company, anytime you could search something that Google couldn't search was a big deal. And I thought, actually, I can do that, because I've been working on analyzing human voice. So instead of extracting speech content, maybe I can extract the melody and even the phonetic content. And then I had to just build a matching technology for taking a humming from a user and matching it against a database of melodies. And then I looked up James Hum on the Stanford directory, one of our co-founders. He was my student when I was a TA 2 years back, and I hadn't talked to him. I found him in the Stanford directory, and I wrote him an email saying, hey, do you remember I was your TA and you talked about this query by humming idea? I think I can do it. So why don't we get together for coffee and discuss it? And I didn't send the email because I thought, what if I send the email when I'm excited about it and get email excited, and then tomorrow I'm not excited about it? So I saved a draft of the email and I never sent it. And I said, maybe in a couple of days, if I feel the same way, then I'll reach out to him. And then the next day I was driving on campus, and there was a stop sign that I had to stop at. And then James Hum is just crossing right in front of me. And I thought, wow, that's meant to be, and rolled down the window and I said, James, get in the car. And I was like, he hasn't seen me for 2 years. He doesn't even remember me. But I managed to convince him to get in the car. We went for coffee, and then we started the company. And I told him I want to build a voice AI company, but the first product is going to be query by humming. So you hum a song and your voice becomes a search query, and we tell you what the song is. And that's something that we could build within a year. The core technology, and I self-funded the whole thing, and then it could be productized in 3 years or so. So we started that, and then we spent in a dorm room just working on the technology. And I remember I kept humming this Godfather melody, that's the famous Godfather soundtrack. And then we had a database of I think 20,000 MIDI files that it was searching to tell us what it is. And the 2 weeks prior to Christmas of 2004, we actually didn't leave our dorm room. So we kept working on this technology, and then it was on the Christmas day that, or Christmas Eve, that finally I hummed this Godfather soundtrack, and he told me, "You're singing Godfather," and we were just so emotional and so happy, and we wanted to celebrate, but then it was Christmas Eve, so nothing was open, and we found this kind of fast food, Mexican food near Stanford campus. That was the only thing that was open, and we went and bought 3 burritos, and it was kind of the best burrito we've had. So that was the story that I was telling Persian.
That's really, really amazing. So, and it's really interesting if you put this in perspective. This is 2 years before YouTube, 3 years before iPhone 1 was announced by Steve Jobs. I think maybe 8 years or 7 years before Siri was acquired by Apple. So this is really amazing. And Keyvan, how did you, so going back to the question that you asked, you were going to VCs and you were telling them about your vision, and people were saying, you know, you need to show a product. How did you go from there to raising 5 million a year or two after you created the first MVP?
Yeah, so we built the humming search, and that was very compelling because it was something that nobody else could do, and we did it really extremely well. It basically showed the capability of our team and our technology and our ability to solve really hard problems. But we pitched voice AI companies. The voice AI companies is the first thing we are doing, and look how difficult it is, how well we do it, and that helped us raise the first 5 million. But it was a difficult journey when you're pursuing a long-term vision. It's not, you have to constantly motivate people, and you come across a lot of discouraging and negative remarks, and not just from VCs, but also from people that we're trying to hire. I became very good at inspiring people all the time, and I would inspire them, and maybe it would last for a few months, and then somebody would raise a flag and have to do it again. And so a big part of my energy was always to inspire people, and then the rest would be just building the core technology and realizing the vision.
And so then you go from this trying hard to convince people into basically unicorn status. 300 million downloads for the SoundHound app, and still it has the best technology. You know, this is well before Shazam or any of the apps, you know, in the market. Can you tell us a little bit about now this other moment in the company? You were featured as 40 under 40 from one of the famous Silicon Valley magazines. So can you tell us now this second period of the company?
Yeah, so when we announced the Houndify platform and the companion app Hound in 2015, that was a big moment because we kept it a secret for 10 years. And I would say the first 6 years was reaching feasibility. And there was a lot of risk that our vision may not even succeed, because we had kind of a new approach to voice AI. Everyone else was doing it differently. We said, let's do it like the brain does, like the brain. Everyone does speech to text and then text to meaning, so they do it in 2 steps. But we thought the brain doesn't go from speech to text in your brain; you go from speech to meaning. And if we can do that, we can improve speed and accuracy. We also wanted to understand really complex queries, like with arbitrary complexity. So we set the bar very high, and the first 6 years was iteration and things not working, and we learned from why it didn't work and do it again. So that first 6 years was really hard, and then we started seeing it work, and we knew that we had something. But then we spent another 3-4 years making it really good and productized it and making it fast and so on. So that was also hard, because some people said, just announce what you have and launch it and get it out there. And we just said, no, it has to be really good before we do it. So in 2015 was a very important moment and important year, because we unveiled what we were working for 10 years. And sometimes companies work on something for 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, and then they announce it. But for us, it was very meaningful. And then I had this concern that sometimes the world is not ready for what you have, or you might think you have. I mean, history is full of stories of people being ahead of their time and showing something, like even artists like Van Gogh, he died, he was a poor person when he died, but now his paintings are hundreds of millions of dollars. And so I don't want to be a Van Gogh. I want to be appreciated for what we've done. And so there was a bit of fear and concern that what if we know what we have is really good, but if the world is not ready for it? But our announcement was fantastic. There was this video that kind of went viral. It got 2 million views. I woke up on the day of the announcement and had 10,000 views. And we were just so happy that 10,000 people have watched our video. And then it became 100,000 an hour later, and we just couldn't believe it. And then it was 2 million at the end of the day. And so people were ready for it. And that, what started after that, it brought a lot of adoption, a lot of customers, a lot of funding. Our company grew by an order of magnitude. And obviously new challenges came with that, but it was very well received. And we thought we deserved it because we worked very hard for it.
I watched the app, and also you showed it live. This is, people can actually download the app and try it for themselves. I tried it for Persian music, Persian restaurant. It works really well. Very, very complex queries. It is well beyond what Google and Amazon, for example, can do. And on that note, there is a lot of questions for especially young entrepreneurs when they're developing a technology that, let's say, Google or Amazon or Microsoft are working on. There is a lot of course, big competition with these giants. What was your strategy? Because obviously these companies had an offering in this area.
Yeah, so it was very difficult. Just the idea of competing with Google, for example, it's just such a scary thought that not just for investors, but also when you're hiring people. Some people say, "Oh, you're going to compete with Google. I'm not going to join you, right? Because you're not going to succeed." So for the majority of our history, that was a problem. It's not as much of a problem anymore for two things. One is we have already established ourselves as a major player and a major force, and good technology, good adoption. So that people being afraid to invest in us or join us, that hasn't come up, partially for that reason. But the other reason is that there's a trend of rising disruptors. So it is possible to beat the giants, the legacy giants. For example, we're using Zoom right now. Zoom, companies like Google and Microsoft have their own program, and Cisco has its own, and these are the legacy giants. But Zoom came out of nowhere, and they were focused to make the technology good and the business model good, and they won, and that's what we are using. Even outside of big tech, Uber disrupted the taxi business. So there's this trend of rising independent disruptors that is proven, and you can reference it, and these people are not as afraid anymore. And obviously, when we started, everybody was afraid, but we had to have the courage to do it. But I like to say that we also paved the way that it is possible to compete with the giants and beat them. My advice is, don't be afraid. If you think you have something to do and offer, just go after it, and don't be afraid of the big guys.
Keyvan, how is your role, from being a PhD student, you went to become the CEO of SoundHound. It's a unicorn company. You have 200 employees, several different countries. How's your role evolved throughout the 15 years that you've been the CEO? And can you share with us some of the perhaps interesting decisions that you made throughout the years, or interesting things that you can share with us?
Yeah, we actually have 400 employees and growing. Obviously started from a couple of kids in a dorm room. It's the constant education. I have to keep reinventing myself, and not just myself, but my colleagues. We all have worked together for many years, and We have to keep learning and facing new challenges. And it's also part of it is a choice. Sometimes people are good at, a part of the journey and they are really good at it. And when the next phase begins, they pass it on and they go back and start again. And that's actually a very reasonable choice. Just stay at, focus on what you're good at and keep doing it. But for me, I wanted to go through the whole journey and I wanted to be good at everything. And one of the stories that inspired me was when Charlie Chaplin made the movie Modern Times. I heard that he wrote the book, he wrote the story, and he acted in it as the main actor. He directed it, and he also made the music. And I was inspired. I thought you could be good at the whole thing, and I wanted to be part of the technology creation. And then I wasn't very good at recruiting, so I had to learn that. I had to appreciate products and design, and then I realized our marketing was weak, and I had to learn to appreciate how important marketing is, and then attract really good people in marketing and turn it to strength. And I had to learn how to raise funding from without external help. I was able to raise hundreds of millions of dollars in funding and win big contracts and from big customers to choose us instead of other well-known players. And again, it's constant education, and it's something that I enjoy. But again, it's part of it is your choice. So you could just stay at the technology part or the fundraising part or the operation part, and then let others do the rest.
Great. And before we get to the Q&A, I had a couple other questions. One of them is, so Keyvan, you had a great vision in early 2000 of what's going to happen in 2020. What's your vision for the next 10, 20 years? What do you think how do you think this, for both SoundHound and in general, the tech, can you share with us a little bit about what you think are the major disruptors in the next 20 years?
Yeah, I think AI and machine learning, we are still in the early stages. If you look at what happened with Industrial Revolution, machines became better than humans at doing heavy lifting, and that transformed the industry. A funny observation is that before that, being physically fit and strong was a requirement to succeed. Now it's still attractive, but not really a requirement. And I think the same thing could happen about being smart and intelligent, right? It would still be attractive to be smart and intelligent, but machines will become smarter than humans, so it actually won't be necessary to succeed. So machines will be able to solve unsolved problems. It's a fascinating prediction, and there are many ways to think about it as, wow, the world will be great because we can solve diseases or cure diseases and solve other problems at a faster pace. It could also be kind of scary, so we have to keep it under control. But I think that will happen. So the same thing happened with the Industrial Revolution. I think there will be a new intellectual revolution where computers become smarter than humans at solving problems, and the pace of solving the unsolved problems will happen a lot faster.
And related to this, Keyvan, if you were a student today, you were a PhD student today, what would be the area that you would focus on?
I would focus on machine learning for the reasons I mentioned, because I think there more disruptions will come. But people should pursue what they enjoy, spending a big part of their life in. So it doesn't have to be. So this is kind of what I would do, but it's not really my advice for other people. I think people should pursue their dreams and their own passion.
Great. And so people, if in the audience, if you have questions, please feel free to ask it in the Q&A. I have a couple more questions to go through it. Please, if you have questions, you can post it in the Q&A. And so, Keyvan, related to that, one common question that we got also for Ali Qotz's event was, we have a lot of students who are debating whether to go to grad school or people who are already in grad school and are thinking of getting a master's and going to industry? People are interested in entrepreneurship. What's your take on that? What's your advice about that?
It was the right thing for me because I was a new immigrant and I was still, the PhD program gave me a chance to learn to fit in and learn the culture and form new friendships and experiences and partnerships that have been a key part of my journey. So for me, it was the right thing to do. In terms of the technical education, I actually got more of that as part of my job at SoundHound. I got a better technical education than what I learned in grad school. It was a slower pace and a bit more relaxed and more academic, less practical. So, but once you start, you have to get something done, then you become more practical and you have to be faster and you're also more motivated. So I got better technical education. So I wouldn't do it for technical education, but I would. For me, it was the right thing to. Again, as a new immigrant, it was the right thing.
Great, thank you. Thank you so much. So we have several questions from the audience. I hope we can get to all of them in the time we have. Siamak is asking about the vision that you shared about the future, about AI and machine learning. What are your thoughts about the advances we're seeing in biological frontiers and also astronomy? Do you see that also as becoming major disruptors in the future?
For biological frontiers, absolutely, and I think the machine learning prediction that I had would be combined with that. So I think we can have computers help us understand biology better, and it can contribute to field of medicine and curing diseases and preventing diseases and so on. So focusing on biology itself I think it's a good investment if you're trying to be a part of the changes in the future. But combining machine learning and biology, I think will be very fascinating. On the astronomy, I'm definitely a big sci-fi fan, but I wouldn't call myself a thought leader to be able to predict what will happen.
Thank you, Keyvan. There is another question from the audience. You as the CEO of the company, of course, you're involved in a lot of the different areas. You're obviously a very well, you had a very great you have a great technical background, but there are areas that maybe as a CEO, you may not have had prior experience. So how did you deal with facing challenges when you were working or directing departments that was not your core expertise when you were a CEO? And are there lessons that you can share with us?
Yeah, I think the best thing I learned to do is to, instead of obviously hire really good people, attract really good people who are better than you. And I'm very proud that I've done that. Everyone in the company is better than me at what they do. And that's kind of my check. Can I do it myself and be better than them? If the answer is yes, there's a problem. But that's not enough, because a lot of the challenges that we face are unknown territory. And there was a fortune cookie that I opened in a Chinese restaurant that said an angry person talks with their eyes closed and their mouth open, and that made an impact on me. And I think what I try to do is I try to understand the challenges, even though it's not my department, but whether it's in the finance or in marketing or in product or technology that is not my area, or in business development, just by, if I close my eyes and just yell at people, why isn't this happening? Why are you not succeeding? Instead of doing that, I try to learn the challenge and appreciate it and become a part of be a part of the solution together. And that has really worked well as I work with my team members.
Great. We have another question from the audience. What do you think about virtual reality, the future of virtual reality? We just heard from Facebook that about the vision that they have about Meta, and it's really a voice-first technology because there's no longer a keyboard. You have to talk to everything. So what do you think about virtual reality, and perhaps what do you think is SoundHound's future in the next 5-10 years in light of that?
I think virtual reality is a great technology, and it just needs to be productized properly. So people who experienced like Oculus, for example, it was fascinating, but that was many years ago, and it's still not part of our life, and it just needs to be productized well. It's one of those things that they use good technology, but ahead of its time. And if iPad was not the first tablet, I think there were companies that tried to build tablets many years ago, and iPod was not the first MP3 player. So it's going to take doing the right job, productizing it properly, and for mass adoption. And I think it's just a matter of time for someone to get it right. In terms of voice being voice and future of SoundHound, obviously I believe very strongly in the future of SoundHound. I think voice is the next preferred way of communicating with computers. So we went from keyboard and mouse, and then when we had really good touchscreen with iPhone and other smartphones, it really changed things, and it enabled new use cases and new experiences. But touchscreen didn't replace touching a mouse and keyboard, so they coexist. Sometimes we prefer one versus the other. And I think voice will be the same. Voice will be the next big change in human-computer interaction. It won't completely replace touch and keyboard and mouse, but it will coexist. However, with billions and billions or tens of billions of IoT devices, a lot of these devices, they're connected, but they don't have a keyboard, they don't have a mouse, they don't have a touch screen. They can't afford to put a touch screen or an expensive interface, but they can have a small, inexpensive microphone. And with that one microphone, you can unleash the power of internet to the users. You can bring these products to life, and we like to say convert IoT to AIoT. So we think everything will be voice enabled, and people will expect it. So voice will be a preferred way to interact with these devices, sometimes the only way to interact with the devices. So huge potential for SoundHound or a company like SoundHound for decades to come.
Great. Another question from Sina is, you mentioned about the next 20 years. Do you think the AI can also become capable of empathy in the future?
I think it's possible. It just hasn't been a priority because people are trying to, get the basic things done. But absolutely, just first we would simulate emotion, even though it might be kind of hard-coded or hand-engineered. So you will see some of that, but then eventually they will be able to capable of empathy.
Great. And we have another question, which is, I guess, a very, very common question. What's your favorite Persian food?
Too many to count. Obviously, you can't go wrong with kebab. I like all the stews, but if I really had to pick one, it would be tahdig.
Nice. Great choice. Great. Thank you. We are almost at the hour. Thank you so much, Keyvan. Really, really appreciate your valuable time. I know you're super busy, so we are very grateful that you've given us your time. Let me now hand it back over to our co-president, Farzaneh.
Thank you.
So hello, thank you guys for joining us at our wonderful event. We really appreciate it. I hope you walked away from today's event with something insightful. As an end to our presentation, I want everyone to give a virtual round of applause from their room for Keyvan Can. Thank you, Keyvan. Your words were very important for us, and it gave us a good eye into how to look at the tech industry and how to think differently about entrepreneurship as well as innovation. I think everyone can walk away with some important insight on how to further their own careers as well. And then for our future events at ISC for A Tale of a Success, we also have Nargis Bani Asadi. So if you guys want to register for that event as well, this is the registration slide. So please do so right now if you'd like to register on our Eventbrite. Once again, thank you so much, Keyvan. And yeah, thank you everyone for joining us.
Thank you for having me.